Hey everybody, this is Joe. Thank you for watching my Giga-Texas construction update video. I'm back out here at Giga-Texas. It's Monday, the 22nd of May. Another week and a lot of activity going on here at the site. One of the things I want to talk about in the intro before we get into the video is what you see down on the south end. Not only have they been working on the grade, the piers, and the continuous flight auger piles, but now they're working on a very large section on the southeast corner of stamping, which looks to be some trenching and some water pipes, some white pipes that are being installed in that section. And this matches up with a permit that we reviewed a few months ago about the work that was going to go on in this area. In addition, nearby, as you can see by this image, more of those rebar cages, this time for footings, are being assembled and stored on that southeast side, along with some of the cages for that continuous flight auger piles. Now, the actual piles and geopiers are not functioning right now, and they haven't been for several days, which means that maybe it's either a pause in this phase of the construction or they're about to move to the next phase, which would be excavating for footings and doing a lot of the plumbing that we're seeing right now. Speaking of excavations and also conduit, one other place I want to talk about today in the intro is up near the east side of the casting machine structure. You can see on that berm that's been widened and also still has that plastic sheeting to help prevent the erosion from the rain. The conduit installation is now wrapped completely around to that east side where it connects into the conduit that currently runs into the building and is providing the power. And that was installed about 1.5 or 2 years ago, and now they're getting ready to tie into that and then run it to the north to connect to the Megapack system and also the electrical switchyard. So pretty cool to see this activity. There is more going on around the site, and we have a wide-ranging flight from the west side all the way to the far northeast and the east side as well. So I hope that you watch the entire video and you'll appreciate the narration and the sights along the way. As always, thank you very much for watching. I appreciate it, and I hope you have a great week. Take care. My drones are ready and raring to go. Let's go flying over Giga-Texas. Well, happy Monday. We're starting off here on the southeast side of the east portion of the main site. You can see the battery cathode plant and die shop in the upper right, the warehouse on wheels. We'll fly over the green belt on the left-hand side here, looking at the east parking lot and new car staging and transportation lot. And as I continue to pan to the left, we'll see this clearing coming underneath the bottom of the drone. Not a lot of work in the clearing immediately behind or below the drone, but this smaller clearing area continues to get some more dirt. It's being brought in from the northeast side of the battery cathode plant, and it looks like that grade is very close to being completed. I'll take advantage of the lighting to give a good view of this east side of the building. See some of the activity on the southern portion of the body in white, and also the stamping machine structure, some of the open doors. You can see some of the activity inside, some coils of steel in that one open door on the right hand side, and also some of these white components which are part of the AIDA stamping presses that we've been seeing installed in the south end of Stamping 2. This is a good overall view of the entire south end. Just south of the Cyber Pond is where River Road's being extended, and we'll get a closer look at that a little later in the video. But here, I want to show you this trench work that's going on in the southeast corner, right at the wall of the stamping machine structure. You can also see some white pipes being installed. Now, in a previous video, we talked about multiple permits that were recently filed, and this is one of them, and it's extending some of this water service in this section underneath the wall into the building, and also extending it to the south end where the extension of the building is being constructed. Here we see some rebar at the middle bottom of the screen, some of the rebar cages for the footings that have been constructed and stockpiled here, and this will be for the columns for this future structure when it's completed. Also, we see some of those rebar cages, the circular ones that will be used for the continuous flight auger piles that have been drilled. And the fact that there's more of them suggests we will see more of that drilling in the near future. Here is that excavation work that is going on just south of Cyber Pond to extend River Road. This bulldozer has these two poles on either side. These are actually GPS antennas, and it helps to give the driver the understanding of just how deep and how the overall grade needs to be prepared for this road. So the fact that they're using these GPS bulldozers, I think, is a good sign that they're getting close to the point where the grade work is almost done, and then they can start on the road construction itself. Now, as we continue to fly towards the South Bridge, you'll note that there's these two very large trailers, one with a semi-truck, kind of cordoned off here with some very large and, based on the trailers, pretty heavy equipment that's in these two crates. Now, I'm not sure exactly what these are. They are not marked, so I can't really get an idea based on whatever company may be shipping these out. But as we get closer, just take a look at just how big these two crates are. Now, you won't see it in the video, but later on as I was departing the site, I noticed that they had two cranes by the Southwest temporary loading platform getting ready to move these up. So it looks like they may be going to the third floor of that general assembly. I also happen to have a photo of these from the ground. And as you can see, this gives you a really good appreciation for if you were standing or very close to these crates, what they would look like from the ground level. So if you happen to know what these are, or if you suspect what they are, let me know in the comments of the video. I would really appreciate it. So let's turn back towards the main factory, and we'll continue touring around the south end and see some more developments. More rebar and cages for those continuous flight augers next to this trailer. As I mentioned before, this indicates we will see more of that drilling and those piles constructed sometime in the near future for this south end. Here we can see the geopiers are idle at the moment. They have finished quite a bit of the geopiers within this center section. There's a few that you can see, those circular dots on this graded location. But for right now, it looks like they've finished their work for the moment, and I'm looking forward to seeing what their next phase of construction is. The continuous flight auger system with these two cranes, that large auger that's being held up by the crane on the right, continues to wait here idly. Maybe they're getting ready to start doing some of those piers on this side, the west side of this south end, but another thing I'll continue to monitor. As we proceed over towards the temporary platform on the south end, a few things. One, I noted earlier those large crates were being moved by two of these cranes. They brought one from the side of the 4680 production cell location, and they used both of them to start moving those large boxes that we saw at the south end up here. Also note they have some plastic kind of wall extensions on the top of that platform to kind of narrow that opening, and maybe just to help prevent some of the rain that we've been having in the area lately from going inside. But we can also see by this platform and this ramp, there's more of these white parts. These, I think, are for platforms that are used for some of the general assembly lines inside, where they are assembling them right inside that section. So it looks like that work is continuing. As we get closer to the main entrance, on the right you'll see those vehicles that were displayed for Shareholder Day last week. Looks like they're just waiting for them to be moved at some point in the future. They also have crews working on landscaping near the base of the wall, right behind those trees. I haven't seen much as far as work on these steel beams and this architectural feature that extends out from the glass. So we'll see what they do and when they start resuming that work. But the reflection in the glass gives you that look of that plaid emblem that we've talked about in the past. As I turn back to this landscape section, all that remains from Shareholders Day is this trailer with that graffiti art of the Cybertruck, and we'll see how long that remains here. This is the end of line where the new vehicles exit the factory for the first time. They just took a large number of these over to the east side, so that's why it's not full at the moment, but it is continuing to have operations there constantly. The plastic wrap on the windows continues here. There's a new section of the white stain. Looks like they're doing it over these receiving docks, and I think that they skipped over end of line just so that they can avoid putting that stain on new vehicles. Now that we're on the west side of the highway, this is a good close-in view of more of the earthwork and grade work that is going on here just north of this material staging yard and also the warehouse on wheels yard. There's a lot of these earthworking and earth moving equipment that you saw just going underneath the nose of the drone, and we'll see more of that a little later in the video. Also, most of these concrete sections that have been stockpiled here are being broken up into smaller pieces and stacked for recycling. This new large clearing with all of the gravel mix is getting more of the equipment, more trailers stored over here, and also some more equipment in that north sort of corner there. It looks like that's some of the security equipment that we see around the site. There's this new road that connects over this center section where the center roadway is being constructed, and then we'll also see more of this earthwork to continue to prepare this grade working to the north up to this other material storage location. Here's some more of that earthworking equipment getting ready to start the day's work, and you can see the crews talking about their next objectives for today. This material storage location with the two tents, a lot of the landscaping materials and irrigation pipes, also continues to get more equipment. Here's some very interesting ones. You can see these steel, it looks like funnels next to that equipment. I'm not sure what that is. If you know, let me know in the comments. I would appreciate that. There's more earthwork going on this depression near this road, and then as we continue to proceed to the north, this is where some of the large equipment and items, the steel beams, steel columns, and some of the concrete vaults are being stored. Also, the workshop on the left is where they have a lot of welding and they are doing modifications of some of the steel parts. You can see two beams right there with looks like holes through them that are in the process of being modified. As we continue further to the north up by the Lone Star paving and concrete plant, I want to show you the work that's going on here with Tesla Road. Now, we talked about a permit in the past, maybe a month or so ago. I told you that they were going to work on the right-of-way and the widening of Tesla Road, and here it is happening, and it's going to be allowing that intersection with Farm to Market 973 to be much more completed. And as I pull away, that gives you a better idea of the work that's going on for the widening of Tesla Road. So now that we've looked at this side of the highway, let's get ready to go across the road, which we just did, and we'll resume the flight looking at the main factory. I'm going to turn towards the east and then to the north, and I want to give you some good views of the current operations here at the Megapack construction site, and also where the electrical conduit is being run from the south to the north on this east side near those trailers. Here's the material storage yard, some of the concrete parts on the bottom left, some steel parts, and also what looks like steel poles. And we'll see more of those installed probably on the north end of the Megapack once that's ready. These two parallel conduits and those concrete vaults continue to the north, and they also extend to the south, and that connects to some of the electrical conduit that we see on the northeast corner of casting. As we continue over the Megapack site, most of the work is being done on this trench just below the drone where they're adding more of the conduit and doing some more trenching and also just recovering from all of the rains. You can see more of that conduit on the right hand side. Here you see two of the excavators at work on either side of this section. It looks like the one on the left is actually filling in some of the trenches, and you can see some of that large conduit that is now extending up to the north, and then where this screw type piers have been installed, and those are those metal poles that are just sticking up above the surface with those flat tops. As I reposition the drone to look towards the south over the entire site, this gives a good overall view of how it is progressing. On the right, we see more of the conduit being stored, and in the bottom corner, it looks like maybe portions of cable tray trench inserts, and we'll be continuing to monitor that to see if that is in fact the case and how it is installed. As I climb up and go over the power lines, and then we'll come back down, we'll look at the electrical switchyard and its progress today. Most of the things I'm looking at the north end is that gravel mix that's being continued to be spread and working from the north to the south along most of the section. There's still a little bit of dirt on the right hand side that needs to have that gravel, but they're continuing now in the midsection to the south, and that's necessary for them to be able to energize the electrical switchyard because it serves as a grounding feature for the switchyard itself. Here next to the fence, just to the south, we see continued installation of those steel beams, some of those concrete panels, it looks like, in between, some of the trench work next to that, and also crews are busy on the left. As I zoom in, you can see this really well, putting in what looks like to be concrete pads in those square sections. And it looks like there's about 10 or so of them right now. Not sure exactly what's going to be mounted there, but it's definitely something I'll be monitoring and we'll see together. Eventually, I think this fence line will continue to go further to the south, just to the south of those concrete footings or the pads, and we'll watch for that as well. Let's fly across the site over the Martin Marietta concrete batch plant, and let's resume the views over by the battery cathode plant today. One thing I'll just point out is how wide this section continues to get with that berm removal on the right-hand side of the screen. Also, next to the tree by the wall of the cathode plant, you'll note that that temporary structure that used to be there to protect equipment has been removed, and all that equipment has been moved inside. And I'll give you closer views of that later in the video. More of the earthwork is going on, removing that berm, and those center dump trucks are headed to that clearing just south of the testing and calibration lot on the east side. As I continue to fly to the northeast, I also want to show you this hill on the left-hand side. This also continues to be removed, filling up many of these trucks, and they are relocating this dirt to other parts of the construction site, while also allowing this hill to be removed to flatten out this grade. And this, again, something I'll be monitoring to see if there's any construction here coming up in the near future. As we stop here, the 4 stainless steel tanks continue to be stored in this section on shoring. They've been relocated several different times, so I'm still not sure exactly where they're going to be installed. The cell test slab, that small steel structure, looks like most of the exterior is completed. I know that there's still work going on in the interior to fit out and install equipment. As we continue to fly along the east side of the battery cathode plant, one of the things noticeable is that the number of materials is continuing to shrink as more and more is going inside. We can also see the earthwork and grading that is going on here on the east side, and they're able to do this because of all the materials that have been moved inside. As we pass these 2 temporary platforms, I want to take advantage of the light and show you that 7-story tall platform and assembly with all of the equipment, where its final disposition is after they assembled it outside and then moved it in with rails, and this is its final location. I'm still not sure exactly what its purpose is, but it's quite a large device, and it was very interesting to watch its installation process. As I pull away from the battery cathode plant itself, I'll give you a good view of the entire east side of this construction site, so you can see how that looks today. And we'll continue the flight over towards the die shop go right over the roof here, and I want to show you some of the activity and changes that are going on in this alleyway. First off, you can see that crews have really done a good job on the roof. Almost all of the weatherproof membrane is completed. They just have to do those interfaces between the roof and the wall projections to finish up that installation. Also on the ground, crews are installing forms, that yellow moisture barrier rebar, for some more of these concrete platforms that they're putting along this side of the building. The nitrogen generator and the vaporizer area, looks like there's activity. Crews are working on some of the manifolds that will connect to the vaporizers and be able to collect the nitrogen. Also see some more work on the ground here around the chiller plant. Some of the work that's going on the roof section. Looks like some grating has been installed. And then of course those Evapco fan units. As I continue to fly to the north, there's work that is going on here on the roof of the battery cathode plant, and some of those enclosures that are in white as well. I think those are part of some of the ventilation system. As we continue to fly back up to where the berm is being removed, again you can see some of those concrete vaults. The work to continue removing this large section of dirt. The excavator with the center dump truck, again that's being moved down towards the clearing just south of the testing and calibration lot. This also gives you just a good view of just how much wider this section is continuing to become as they remove more and more of this dirt. And it's really encroaching into that Martin Marietta batch plant section now. As I mentioned, next to this tree, that temporary structure is no longer there, and all of the equipment has now been moved inside. Looks like they're cleaning up that section where that structure used to be. As we go over this workshop, we can see that the clearing or the area where they put those blue water pipes just to the north have been filled in, and now they're continuing to do excavation work here to install more of that blue water pipe along this side. And it looks like they're doing the berm in such a way so it won't collapse in, so they're kind of doing an angled cut on that berm. What we're seeing here is more of the electrical conduit in two parallel lines proceeding to the west along this section. Some of that red material is kind of a red concrete they put on top of that conduit, and this is for future workers who may be excavating in the area. If they see that red, they know that it's electrical conduit. And here's some more of those vaults where some of the connections are for that conduit and for future maintenance. It goes underneath this access road, and then you can see more of that conduit continuing along the north side of Tesla Road. Eventually that'll connect over to the conduit that we saw by the Megapack and also reaching down to the main factory. So as I pull away, just to give you a different view of that conduit installation and also the die shop itself, this gives a good view of how it is wrapping up, and almost all of the wall panels have now been installed. As I turn back towards the west, I'll just give you a good view of this material staging location that continues to grow and gain materials to the north of the warehouse on wheels, and just give you an idea of how that looks today. As we continue to progress south along this side of the warehouse on wheels itself, this gives you a good view of all of the trailers that are here, some of the materials that are being stored on the middle of the screen, some of the workshops on the right-hand side of the screen. This section has more materials. Some of them are steel, and we've also seen some of the steel being modified in this section as well with that workshop. This section has a lot of the red and white components that we've seen before that may be associated with platforms used for production. But that stuff has been here for quite some time, so I'm not sure exactly where it's going to be used. This clearing continues to see more concrete panels put on the ground, more of the trailers, and some more of the materials. But also we see this very interesting development. Looks like they're using some of the concrete panels in a vertical fashion, and they're filling it in with dirt. We've seen something like this before, and they used it to put like a trailer. So I don't know if that's what's going to happen or if this is some sort of construction. So it's something worth monitoring as time goes on, and it is a change from what I've seen previously. The new car staging and transportation lot continues to look busy. The cars are being picked up and moved off-site about as fast as they are making them. And that's one of the reasons why we don't see lots of cars here. They still are producing at a very high rate. It's just not stockpiling here at Giga-Texas. They're doing that elsewhere. The wind tunnel looks like it's still just sitting idle right now. I haven't seen much activity there. The new car testing calibration lot and the superchargers are, as always, very busy, and a lot of cars over in this section. And then as we look across this road, we can see the stacked castings and some of those rack mounts in front of that glassed-in section. This new receiving dock area with those green load levelers, and this cleared out section, which is being reconfigured and prepared for more concrete, and also more of the racks and the castings along the east side of the casting machine structure. What we're seeing here at the dirt area is the conduit has now reached the point where it's starting to connect into the original conduit that brought temporary power from the temporary electrical switchyard to the factory. You can also see quite a bit of the concrete vaults lined up here, and more of the work to both widen that berm but also finish up that electrical conduit installation. Now, some of that conduit is already in place, and it goes underneath this parking lot and Tesla Road, and it connects up to where we've seen that new conduit being installed along the power lines by the Megapack. So what they're doing here is they're finishing up that original installation and bringing the power that will eventually come from that new permanent switchyard to power Giga-Texas. We also see more work on this particular section here. Looks like there's some blue pipe and some green pipe. I also know that some of the black HDPE pipe has been installed in that section as well. At a lower altitude, I'll give you another view of this widened berm, the conduit, the concrete vaults, and that plastic along the berm to try to prevent the erosion because of all the rains. This also gives a good view of the activity on the east side of the casting machine structure. And also, I've been noticing there's a lot of concrete removal going on inside the casting machine structure, particularly next to some of those east receiving doors. So that's something I'll continue to monitor and try to get better views of at a future video. As we continue to fly along the north side, I'll stop here and show you this excavation work. I think that this is part of the fire water loop, or also where like the hydrant would be, and for some reason they're doing some more rework in that particular section. As we continue to fly west along the north side, you can tell that the crane has been removed here, and that's because it's been relocated to that southwest corner platform where it and the other crane that's there is being used to lift those very large boxes that we saw on those delivery trailers on that south end. This northwest corner, the cooling enclosures and the vents, this is the part of the factory where 4680 materials are manufactured and the batteries themselves are manufactured. We can also see this temporary scaffolding enclosure being installed next to the solar panels on this section as well, and I'm still monitoring to see when that is completed. So as we pull away from the factory, I'll gain up altitude to give you a good bird's eye view of the entire factory, most of the site, most of the areas that we flew the drone today, and hopefully this gives you just a good overall view of the size of the site, the areas that we've toured and talked about, and many of the changes. Also, if you look across the factory, you can see that west side where we looked at that clearing, and also that new large section of earthwork that is underway. So I'll continue to fly up to the northeast, continue to reveal the factory as we do this pullback. I hope that you enjoyed the video and the discussion and some of the details that we talked about today. As always, I very much appreciate your support. Thank you very much, and I hope you have a great rest of the week. Take care.